His new movie, Fierce Creatures, John Cleese reunites with a cast from his 1988 hit, A Fish Called Wanda. Along with Kevin Kline and Jamie Lee Curtis, Cleese plays a manager of a small zoo who devises a plan to make it profitable. To attract bigger crowds, he decides the zoo should only feature dangerous animals, much to the dismay of the zookeepers.
Keep back, please, everybody. Please, keep back.
Well, what's going on now?
Just recapturing an animal. Nothing to worry about. It's not fierce.
Well, why have you got the guns then?
Just a precaution. Don't worry. Everything's under control.
It's the black widow spider. Get its name, Mr. Lee, because it eats its mate.
We've caught it, ladies and gentlemen, so we can all relax, and thank you very much for your cooperation. Thank you. Well done, everybody. Well done. What is that?
That is an anteater. It's not too close. It's very angry.
Angry?
Probably got wicked temper, sir.
Devastate small towns, do they?
No, not
Stop,
these.
stop,
Look
stop.
at the claws, sir. They're diabolical.
Lord, I mean, you did not need 3 guns to recapture this. A sharp stick would have sufficed.
Sharp stick, believe you me, sir. These jaws.
It's an anteater, not a man-eater.
What would you be saying if it went over there, jumped into that pram? What would you be saying to the child's mother now?
I'd be saying, madam, you are the victim of an 8 billion to 1 chance, a leaping anteater, an evolutionary mutant, previously unknown to science.
They climb like monkeys.
Will you be quiet? Just get this fluffy toy back in its enclosure and stop insulting my intelligence.
This is the... Now, just tell me this. There was a shot there that should have been in there.
Yeah, I was just saying, it was a pity we didn't cover the crowd at one point.
Because you talked about them in there.
Well, when I turned to the crowd and say, it's all right, ladies and gentlemen, it was a pity we didn't go onto the crowd. When you're editing it, you suddenly, you're 20/20 hindsight.
You realize you don't have that shot, and so you go on.
We just miss a beat there. But it's a pleasure now, because I've seen that several times, as I now watch all the other actors. And I think Carrie Lowell's really funny in that, and Michael Percival, you know. Yeah. And it's very nice. As you get used to the film, you start looking around the screen more.
You wrote this?
I co-wrote it with a great buddy of mine. No, with a great buddy called Ian Johnston. Because I'm ashamed I don't go to as many movies as I should. And Ian is an old friend who was the Sunday Times film critic for 10 years. So he's seen a million movies. And I thought it'd be a good combination. And it was great fun writing it with him. It was
How
very
do you co-write something? You sit down and...
You just sit down. We could do it. I mean, I'm sure, you just sit down and you start chatting. And if you chat for long enough, suddenly you get a good idea. Yeah. I mean, you need a lot of good, funny ideas in comedies, and they don't come along very often.
And how fast do you have to have one? Do you have to have one every...
Well, I learned patience. I mean, I'm better on 2 things now than I was 20 years ago. I'm more patient about waiting for good ideas to come. And I'm much better about cutting my own stuff. Because, I mean, if I think a scene doesn't work and I spent 3 days on it, I'd say, oh, Ian, this doesn't work, let's throw it away. And he would go, ah!
But that becomes with experience.
Yeah, I think so. And also the fact that when you're young and you write something, it's terribly precious to you. Yeah. And when you're old, you've written so much. You say, oh, a bit more goes in the waste basket. What's the difference?
Yeah. You also produce this?
Well, I kind of produce it. I mean, Michael Schamberg and Steve Abbott do 90% of the donkey work.
But your name is on it.
Yeah, I do the kind of creative producing. I produce the money to begin with until the script is in a form where we can go to a studio and say, here's the script, here's the stars, here's the director, here's the budget. Do you see what I mean? I finance it up to that point. And then I do some producery things like... the schedule. I keep an eye on the schedule because you can screw the shooting of a movie up by getting the schedule wrong. And then at this other end, along with Michael Schamberg, I kind of approve the trailers and the posters and the TV ads and all that stuff.
You like that stuff?
It's kind of interesting, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of it.
Kind of...
Yeah, but it's very interesting trying to get a 30-second commercial right so that it conveys the spirit of the movie. Yeah. It's very difficult, and it takes a lot of shots. But Charlie, it's comedy. I always say, you remember that famous old English actor who was dying, and somebody said to him, is dying hard? He said, no, dying is easy. Comedy is hard.
I'm sorry, I stepped on your line.
No,
terrible.
It's true.
Yeah, it is. Comedy is hard.
Comedy is hard.
Hard for you?
Yes, particularly. I mean, I always say I've got a great advantage over my contemporaries is that I know how difficult it is. They think it's a bit easier than I do. So I'm the one who spends 6 weeks writing a Fawlty Towers episode. Yeah. With the result, it's pretty good at the end.
Not only pretty good, you told me you'd stop doing Fawlty Towers because you knew you couldn't do anything as good as it had been. You
Right.
couldn't.
Dude, I didn't think I could do it better, neither Connie nor I. And that was the problem, actually, after Fish Called Wanda. I mean, if you have a hit like that...
$200 million.
Yeah, 190, but I mean, you know, okay.
What's
well,
10 million a month?
quibble. That's not quibble. But when you've had a success like that, it is terribly difficult to follow it. And you start thinking, we should have been a disaster. There wouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah, but if you have a $90 million hit, there's no question that if you're doing the same idea, you can raise a lot of money.
You can, but it's not as interesting. What I mean is, look, one of the great things about Wanda was people were able to walk in off the street and they were able to discover it for themselves, just like the first series of 40 Tasks.
It's the way I discovered it. Yeah.
Isn't it lovely?
Yeah.
You discover it, you kind of feel, I have a special relationship with this movie, and you tell people about it, and you sort of own a bit. Well, once you've done that with Fish Called Wanda, you come to Fierce Creatures. You can't sneak in with Fierce Creatures. The reality is you have to go wide. You have to do a lot of hype. And then there isn't quite that sense of, hey, I discovered it.
And people are going to say, you better be as good as your last one were. Don't waste my time.
I've had one criticism of Fierce Creatures. It's a journalist on the West Coast I like a lot called Bart Mills. And I said, well, how'd you like it? He said, it was very funny. He said, but wasn't as mean-spirited as... What a great criticism.
Let me show another clip for you. This is Kevin and Jamie Lee Curtis mistake the animals that you are
Oh, yes, that's right.
hiding. Set it up.
Yeah, well, I've got some animals in my room, and it's too complicated to explain why, but I don't want anyone to know I got them there. Then they ring me. They're my new bosses from Atlanta, and I have to pretend that I don't have the animals.
Yeah, they're roll tape. Here it is.
Right. First thing tomorrow, I'd like you to send me the most current marketing figures that you've got. Okie doke.
Right.
Rollo, hi. Willa Weston here. Are you all right?
Susie, quiet. Hello? I'm just going to put you on hold just for one moment, okay? Thank you. Now, you just go over there. Right? Stay. Don't just stop it. I've got to talk with those marketing moonies. Now, just go over there and play with each other, right? Go on, go on. He's got 2 girls. Go away, Susie. Susie, what are you going down there for? No, stop licking my careful. I can't fool around with you now. Ow! Don't pull. Yes, that, stay. Cindy, get off the bed. Cindy, off. I don't want you now. Get 3 girls. 1, just go. Oh, that is disgusting.
That'll sell the movie right there.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, that is hilarious.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, it is good. I mean, and just hitting the phone is it's perfect.
Yeah, it's lovely. I'm really pleased with that scene. And not too difficult to shoot. We had to reshoot some of it, but it was interesting because we were too ambitious the first time. But if you figure out exactly what you need in each shot, you see what I mean? Each 5-6 second roll of the camera, you can get it.
Yeah. And Jamie Lee and Kevin's sort of...
Well, they're awfully good, aren't they?
Well,
I would never say that
the
in
cutaways to
public.
them are just perfect.
Yeah. I love the way she does that. She's very good.
Yeah.
She's very good.
Let me look at one more clip because we're going to make sure we get this movie in front of America. Take a look at this. This is where you're having trouble holding a conversation with Jamie Lee, and she begins to unbutton. Set it up.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to persuade her that the zoo's actually become much too commercial and there's too many advertising hoardings. So I kind of stop her and try and get this point across to her. And she just decides to come on to me a bit. And, of course, being English, I just can't handle it. It makes me very nervous.
Roll tape.
Look, can I ask you something?
Sure.
Only, I know we're not making 20% yet, but some of the marketing devices are a bit crude.
Yes.
Because, you know, the keepers and I will...
Oh, look at them. Aren't they gorgeous? Oh, they just make you want to fondle them.
Oh, yes, yes, I see what you mean. Yes.
Is this one your favorite?
Yes, I like him best of all the small mammals. Sorry. Yes, his name's Rollo, actually.
Really?
Yeah, so I sort of feed him some little special tidbits. Tidbits. Keep making boobs. Anyway, he just loves his nuts.
Does he?
It's a great look she does. It's a very vulgar, cheap,
Yes, it is.
despicable
How could
film,
you do
but
this?
people like
It's just a cheap shot right to the main line to the wallet. And tell me, did you have to redo a bunch of this, about 45% of this?
I don't think it's anything like 45. No, we had to do...
40.
Well, we had to redo the ending, because we got an ending that didn't work.
Really? So you did this with testing?
Yes, but also...
I mean, here I thought Comic Genius was so intuitive.
Let me tell you something. I think something's funny, Charlie. No, if I think something's funny and the audience doesn't laugh Monday, I can say, stupid audience, what a dumb lot, you know, forget them.
Right.
Then Tuesday, the audience doesn't laugh. You know, you lose a little confidence. By Wednesday, if they don't laugh, it isn't funny.
Yeah, right.
I promise you.
By Wednesday, you say, John, not funny.
Not funny. So we had to reshoot the ending. I made the same mistake. You know, we reshot the ending of Wonder twice.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
No.
It's the hardest thing in comedy, which is hard anyway, Charlie.
Is what?
Is the ending.
Yeah.
It's getting
Death
a
is easy.
finish. Yeah.
But
if you can get the ending right, then you've really accomplished something remarkable. So I've with the two movies now, we've done 5 endings, of which 2 work. But we do have
3
2.
for Wanda and 2 for this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Why the hell couldn't you, as smart as you are, see it?
Because it's too difficult. Because it's too difficult. I thought it was going to work.
What's too difficult about it?
Because you can't. First of all, you can. You have Bill Goldman, William Goldman, on the other day.
He did, yeah.
William wrote the great book about Hollywood.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody knows anything here. Or something.
Exactly. That's it. Nobody knows, and that's ultimately it. Look, in the first ending, Kevin and I found a moment in the script we thought was the funniest thing that had been in either of the 2 films. It completely laid an egg. There was no laughter at all, just a kind of resentful chill in the audience. And if Kevin and I are going to get something as wildly wrong as that, an awful lot of people aren't going to do that much better percentage-wise. So I'm very pragmatic, and I hope it's a kind of humility.
Yeah.
I go out there, I show the ending, and if the audience doesn't laugh, I then try and figure out why. Now, sometimes they try to tell me why in the focus groups. And their analyses are usually not good. What is great with a focus group, they tell you when they're bored, they tell you when they don't understand something, they tell you when they're offended, and they tell you when they don't buy something, when they don't believe something. And you listen to those 4 things, then you do the analysis about how to fix it.
Has a focus group ever been wrong?
Probably.
I mean,
don't know.
of course they have, but I mean, you know...
But the first 2 minutes of a focus group, when they're saying what they liked and what they didn't like, that's solid gold. You know, and they're just as good as to sit in the audience. But it's hard, because if I sat with people in the audience, you know, I have to sit at the back.
Now, do you have some facilitator do this, or do you do it?
No, the facilitator does it, because if I was there, they might not tell the truth.
Right,
you know,
so you're behind the mirror or whatever.
Are very good, I have to tell you.
And you're behind the mirror or something? Or?
That's why I'm listening right at the back. Yeah, and you pick it up, because you argue about the meaning of it. But it's very, very interesting. And sometimes, I mean, there was one scene, a very funny scene, about 70% of the way through the movie. And when I showed it to an audience in London, people said it's the same as a scene earlier. I said, it's not the same joke. And I was completely puzzled. Then I realized it was the same as a scene right at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
But 70 minutes later, they weren't laughing because we'd already done the joke once. It's extraordinary. So we lost that scene and reshot a 2-minute scene right at the beginning of the movie. Then the other scene started to work. It's hard.
Yeah. But on the other hand, I mean, I'm thinking of you saying all this, and Kristen Scott Thomas was here recently. A brilliant performance in The English Patient. Studios didn't want her. 20th Century Fox didn't want her because she wasn't a big star. They thought only a big star will bring in.
Well, Bill Goldman's great on this. I mean, he says that it's the story. That's people go to the movies to see a story.
I do too. I believe that.
Yeah, I do. I think it's all important. It's the only thing in writing that really fascinates me is story. I very much enjoy Robert McKee's story structure course, you know, the writing course.
Right.
I've taken it 3 times. I think it's the most interesting thing in the world. Why does a story work? Or why do you screw a story up? Sometimes you make a movie and there's a basic mistake in the story early on, and it doesn't matter how good the rest of it is, the whole movie just falls to the floor.
I mean, you understand the business aspects of this really well. You believe that, I mean, we think of things like writing and screenwriting. All of us looking at it from afar think it's some great creative genius that comes from inside that, you know, John Cleese is funny. He can write great stuff because he's made different than we are. You're saying no.
No, it's like any skill, whether we're talking about baseball or playing a musical instrument. You have to have some talent, and then you have to have masses of experience.
Masses of experience.
Masses of experience.
Learning whatever you can.
And figure out what works. I mean, there's only 3 people who are exceptions to this, as far as I can see, and that's people who are great at chess, people who are great at maths, and people who are great at music. They just seem to be able to do it. They know how it works without
There's something
experience.
about them.
There's something about those particular subjects that are extraordinary intellectual content, and which doesn't seem to be dependent on experience. But anything else, if you don't learn all the time from your experience, you're never going to get very good.
Yeah, and you know, the idea is, I think also, the better you get at something, and the more you put into that performance out there, this is obvious, the easier you can make it look.
That's
I mean,
right.
somebody once said, the secret is not to make it look like acting.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah.
So
those are the great
technique
you know,
doesn't
the great
show.
sportsmen. You see, I don't know about American sports so much, but the great cricketers, the great soccer players, always look as though they have a little more time to do everything than all the other players. It's a kind of magic.
Michael Jordan, the greatest team player, basketball player in the history of basketball, didn't make the team when he was a sophomore in high school. You know, he sort of hadn't fully developed, you know, and all that, didn't make the team. Yet he is the most driven, they say, I don't know him personally, most driven athlete you've ever seen in terms of perfection, in terms of practice, in terms of, you know, getting it right.
I love a story, again, Bill Goldman told me this, that one basketball player, somebody said, why do you practice this much? And he said, because if I practice this much, maybe 3 times a year, an angel sits on my shoulder. In other words, 3 matches a year. He just can do no wrong.
Oh, yeah. And
it's like Pascal. Remember Pascal? Who said, he said, I believe that luck is very important, but the funny thing is the better prepared I am, the more luck I seem to get.
Or that other sort of bromide, which was the note, you know, success is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration.
Well, that's what I believe.
But it is also this notion of Ben Hogan, who was a great golfer, who understood more about a golf swing. Fabulous golfer. Somebody went out to see him practice one time, and he was hitting a little shot behind a tree, right behind a tree. And he'd practice, and he had about 300 balls behind the tree. And he said, why are you doing that? I mean, you know, there's so many other things. He said, one day I'll have to use this shot. You know, it was just making sure that all that training, that groove, and that sort of being prepared for the moment when it comes. Because when you're prepared, it releases also, for me, I think it releases your spontaneity, one, and two, it eliminates attention too, more, as much as it possibly can.
Well, this is, I have to say this about Kevin Kline. I'm usually rude about Kevin. He responds much better to rough treatment.
Yeah, right.
But you see a man who's honed his acting skills since he was a student, and now
through Shakespeare and everything else.
Through everything, he can do everything. This man. I mean, when he comes on screen as the son and the father, you don't know it is him.
Roles in this
we again talking in focus groups.
Right.
8 out of 20 people, when we tested it on Long Island, did not know that Kevin had played the father. They'd just watched the movie and watched him play the son. They didn't realize the same guy was doing it. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to love it. The great thing about watching Kevin act is he loves it. That's why he's so good.
Do you love it?
No.
I know.
I know. I don't understand why.
Why you don't love it?
I don't love it. I love the writing, and I love understanding story.
And you love putting it together.
And I love putting it together. But the actual acting, I really could do with that. There are moments, especially when I'm on stage with Michael Palin, and you can see the audience laugh, that are great. Those moments make me very happy.
How many more of these are you going to do? Not interviews, movies.
I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah, so there's no, you don't have any sense of this. I'll do this for 5 more years.
I know that
and then I'll start doing what I really want to do.
I'm going to buzz off, hence the beard, incidentally, to do Don Quixote in the spring in Spain.
Yes.
With Robin Williams doing Sancho Panza and Fred Schepisi directing. But after that,
Fred Schepisi. Did he direct this?
He did.
Co-director?
He directed this, and he came in and directed the reshoots because Robert Young had got tied up in another movie. We didn't know when we were going to do the reshoots.
I understand.
This nightmare period, we never thought we could get the actors
after we
together.
listened to the focus group or something?
No, it was just the problem of getting the actors together because these are busy guys. The problem with working with busy people is that they're good. Sorry, I'll say that again the right way around. The problem with working with good people is that they're busy. Yeah.
All right. Much success. It's great to see you.
Thank you.
See you soon. John Cleese will be right back. Stay with us.